Well, the Prime Minister said he'll be reading it over the weekend, and I did actually hear you during the week saying the report was very large. In fact, it weighed around 10 kilos, so a huge report. What are we expecting to find out?
Well, look, this has been a substantial review of the aged care system. As we know, the interim report was released, 14, 15 months ago. It talked about turning the system on its head, by which Commissioner Briggs in particular at the time spoke about that. She meant that this system needs to be under the control of the consumers, the users, the older people and their families. That's who the system ought to be about, not run according to the rules of providers or the rules of the government. It will talk about a new Aged Care Act that's based on the rights of people. It will certainly make recommendations with regard to additional staffing, training, resourcing the staffing better. It will make recommendations about getting rid of waiting times, and in fact that will be one of our early priorities, to see whether the government sets a clear timetable to get the home care waiting times down to nothing by, say, the end of next year. But also, I think we are looking for it to, as I said, place much more control over aged care, what I get, the quality, the choices I have in the hands of consumers. And what that means is that you don't have to put up with the very significant number of lower standard aged care facilities that still exist around Australia.
Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt, but that interim report in October wasn't just there's a problem here or a problem there, was it? It just showed woeful, it was just woefully inadequate.
Yes. What that interim report did was expose what we and others, but we've been saying for years that providers and the government were reluctant to accept, that this is not a case of a few bad eggs. This is a case where, on the one end, we have a world-class set of providers operating. But down at the lower end, we have a very significant proportion of the industry that is not up to standard. You know, the Australian public is not silly. They know why they don't want to go to residential care. They don't always see the good ones. They see a lot of the poorer ones. As the report said, it operates out of an institutionalised model, not a home model. It operates out of the bare minimums that it can get away with in areas like nutrition and staffing and so on. And yet, those top-end ones aren't able to expand and grow, because the way that we allocate beds in this country means once you've got them, it's really hard to get rid of them, to get them off you. We need stronger standards for being an aged care provider. But that interim report showed that we have a systemic problem. And as I said, Commissioner Briggs talked about turning the aged care system on its head and putting the consumer first, not the provider.
This Royal Commission, as you know, Ian, it took over 2 years, and there was more than 23 public hearings, over 600 witnesses. And as you've mentioned, so much needs to be done, and we will be hearing, the interim report next week, no doubt, and then further reports as we head into the May budget. But the first week of the rollout, the vaccine rollout, we saw, the overdoses from 2 elderly people in Brisbane. We've seen delays, and we've also seen a lot of vaccinations being thrown out. It is the first week. How do you see the next week going forward, and then again the following weeks?
Look, obviously we would all prefer that we didn't see the kind of errors and problems and some delays that we saw during the week in terms of rolling out the vaccinations. On the other hand, we have seen many tens of thousands of vaccinations happen. And look, this is really encouraging. We know that the most vulnerable people to this disease are older people in institutional care and people with disability. I can't wait to see all of these people vaccinated and then moving on to the staff and to others. We need to be a bit patient. I would be disturbed if we see these kind of hiccups occurring, bumps in the road, as Brendan Murphy referred to them, occurring beyond the first couple of weeks. This is not an easy exercise, and this particular vaccine is not easy to distribute because of the temperature. It has to be kept out. So, but let's be patient. It will take months for the whole country to be vaccinated, but we are in a good position in Australia. Let's be thankful we're not elsewhere in the world. We have been a world leader in terms of managing this crisis. So let's hope that that kind of standard is applied when the government's sitting down and looking at what it's going to do about aged care, because we can have a world-class aged care system if the government is prepared and brave enough to be prepared to tackle it and turn this system upside down, develop a plan over the next 4 or 5 years that will totally transform this sector.
It's vital that we do, absolutely vital. And hopefully, in the words of the song, we are collectively heading in the right direction. Thank you, Ian Yates, Chief Executive of Councils on the Ageing.
Thank you.